Yoshi-P 14 structure no longer matches the player's preferences, and I feel that we are at a time where we need to incorporate a major change in the content hierarchy and games design. Holy. I have one issue with this already. First off, 14 structure no longer matches the player's preferences. Okay, so I want to say this. 14 structure has no longer matched the player's preferences for about 4 or 6 fucking years, okay? This isn't new, all right? The fact that they're just now saying this is already fucking concerning. Because, yeah, okay, that's great. That's great that they said it. They admit it. You know, they acknowledge it. But, dude, where the fuck have you been for the past, like, 4 fucking years? Shadowbringer should have been the fucking expansion that they changed the fucking structure. It's been the same for a decade. So, I mean, I guess it's a step in the right direction. So let's read the article. After Dawn Trail criticism, Yoshida sees Final Fantasy XIV facing significant changes. Even if you don't play 14, you may have noticed that the latest expansion, Dawn Trail, received unusually critical feedback from fans. Producer and director anticipated this, as he revealed at Gamescom over a year ago. No, he didn't. This is false. The way that this is worded could have been a lot better. I won't go as far as to say disingenuous, but this is wrong. And I'm going to explain why it's wrong. Basically, when it says the producer and director anticipated this, he revealed at Gamescom over a year ago, what he anticipated was the story. He said that people might not like the story because they're starting over. That is what he said. He didn't say a fucking thing about the structure of the game. Like, he didn't say anything about, like, maybe we should fucking come out with more shit and patches sooner. A few months have passed since then, and his team has been able to gather a lot of feedback. Many fans' attitude toward Dawn Trail remains unchanged. So we asked Yoshi at Gamescom whether everything is still going as expected for the team and what conclusions they've drawn. Yoshi was as detailed as ever, so we'll jump right in. All right, let's see. So 14 is a live service. It is always the case that we constantly look at player feedback and we improvise based on what we see. Of course, from the time of 1 year ago, it's not the case that we would continue our development without referring to the player response at all. We're constantly adjusting and tweaking, improvising where we can in response to player feedback when we're creating content. The way this sounds, if I was a new person that was reading this, I would think that they would constantly be making updates. So I'm not saying he's lying here, but what I'm saying is that, like, his answer here is very misleading because they're not constantly making updates. I read it as like that they're constantly updating, like every, 2 or 3 months, we're getting a patch and an update. That's how I read this. So like as a new player or as a person that doesn't play, when they read this, they're probably like, oh, okay, this is really cool that the devs constantly talk to the fucking players. The devs never talk to the fucking players. Some of the biggest changes actually came from them banning players and implementing mods that they were using into the fucking game. Like, I'm not trying to nitpick here, okay? I'm not trying to nitpick, but I'm just trying to say that, like, this is one of the reasons why they're really out of touch. Because if Yoshi really does think this, now this is probably just a PR answer, but if Yoshi really does think this, and this is concerning, because they're not constantly making updates. Like, do they make changes? Like, yes, they technically do. They technically do. But this is, I don't know, this is just very misleading. And it's kind of annoying because if you didn't know any better, like if you didn't play the game, you didn't follow the game, you would fucking believe this. And that's a problem. There is something that I felt particularly these past 3 months. Rather than it being the players of Final Fantasy, I think in terms of the overall world, and what I mean by that is that it's not limited to Dawn Trail. But in terms of the overall base game design, okay, so this is good. Base game for Final Fantasy XIV. I think that there needs to be restructure about how we approach content hierarchy in the game design, because content hierarchy is a part of the game's design. Okay, I started to feel recently the way the things are structured in Final Fantasy no longer matches the player's preferences. And this is something that I started to feel after we entered this year. And so I felt that now we are at the time where we need to incorporate a major change in the content hierarchy and also the game's design. This is not limited to just expansions, but the overall development of Final Fantasy XIV. Okay, so this is very, very good because the game desperately needs change. However, like everything else in Final Fantasy, it took way too fucking long but they finally admitted it. This is really good. This is a really good paragraph. But when we look at the content hierarchy, we feel that it's worked well as it was up until now. Okay, so this is actually really bad. This is really stupid because, like, when he says we feel that it has worked well as it was up until now, that's just false. That's wrong because people have just tolerated it. It hasn't worked well. It's just worked. If he were to word this like we feel that it has worked over the years, that's fine. 100% agree. But worked well over the years? No, motherfucker. People have been saying that they want more shit and a structure change since like all the way back in A Realm Reborn. I remember because I played during that. For those of you that haven't played the game for a fucking decade, all of the problems that you guys are seeing with the game now, all the problems that people are complaining about, those exact fucking problems existed back in A Realm Reborn. I just want you guys to know. It has been employed right back from the time of A Realm Reborn until patch 7.2, and it has always worked well until now. Again, it's always worked until now. But now I feel we need to advance more, change the content hierarchy, but also change the design itself within said hierarchy. It worked well in the past 12 years, but now we feel our perspective, it needs change, and we are excited about the change and the prospect of changing it for the future of the game. That sounds very interesting and all, and above all substantial. Could you perhaps explain the... Okay, here we go. So the changes. Okay, yeah. So what I was going to say in this was that I hope he really gives examples. Okay, if I start talking about this, I think I will need 2 hours. Who cares? Then take 2 hours. I talked a little bit about this in the letter, in the last live letter. It was in Japanese, but I used some content to explain the first steps of the approach. Oh, he's talking about Pilgrim's Traverse. Okay. If players have not seen this yet, I would really appreciate if they could take time to watch for that first step in the direction. We will be releasing new 7.35, so I'd really appreciate it if players would take the opportunity to play the content, and I'd love to hear their feedback. Okay, so let me ask you guys a question, man. When is 7.35 slated to come out again? Because they never fucking tell us. Yeah. When is 7.35 again? It's in October, but when in October is it? It's supposed to be October 7th, 6 weeks after 0.31. Yeah. When was 0.31 released? Does anyone happen to remember? You know, dude, this is one of my favorite things to do because it brings everybody together. I love the fact that the devs don't actually tell us when they're going to release shit. No, I seriously do. Because that means that we get to talk. We're going to have a conversation, okay? And that's so fucking cool, man. Because we get to guess. You know, ooh, I like guessing. It's like Christmas. Ooh, you know, I'd like to plan, but no, I want to guess. You know, I just love guessing. You know that game Guess Who? That's one of my favorite games. So I love doing this shit. Guess who? Guess the date. Oh man, this is awesome. You know, instead of having a bunch of fucking characters, which apparently one of the characters looks like me because you motherfuckers told me that and you showed me. I don't remember what his fucking name is, but apparently there's a Guess Who character that looks exactly like me. Okay? Now, why do I remember that? I don't know. But my point here is that they should fucking tell us when this is going to come out. Because God forbid they make a fucking roadmap. God forbid they make a schedule. So I'd really appreciate it if players could take the opportunity to play the content. And I'd love to hear their feedback. It would be great to hear whether they thought it was fun or not. Okay, so he's talking about Pilgrim's Traverse, which is the new deep dungeon. And in the new deep dungeon, it's going to be for casual players, mid-core players, and hardcore players. Or whether they have any specific feedback about the things they want changed. The new content that will be coming in the patch is called Pilgrim's Traverse, so I'd really love if players do check it out and let me know their thoughts. I will try to provide a simple summary, and I'll try to keep it short. So when A Realm Reborn was originally released 12 years ago, of course that's a starting point for the game as an MMO, and it's inevitable that there isn't enough content in the game. Of course, when we want to introduce new content, we want to introduce and update it as quickly as possible, and in the starting days of an MMO, that is the only thing you can do to expand it. When we think about how we can efficiently produce content and quickly release it, that forms the basis of the base game design and the game and releasing content. And that basically formulates what we call the content hierarchy in the base game design of Final Fantasy XIV. I'll explain it in a hopefully easy to follow fashion. Okay. Explanation at this point. Yoshida helped himself to the sweets on the table. Ooh, he's got a sweet tooth. Taking 2 packets of each of the 3 different sweets. Each of those 3 types correspond to a form of content. Okay, I thought he was eating it. Holy fuck, I'm such a fat fuck. We have hardcore battle content, casual player content, and mid-core content. Bro. Bro, let me tell you what he used as an example, right? All right. He used a sugar packet for hardcore content. He used a big ass fucking king size candy bar for casual content. And for midcore content, he used a grain of sugar. A literal grain of sugar. And he just put that on there. If you have 2 types of each, that means a total of 6 types of content. From a developer's perspective, we would broadly categorize a community of players into different groups, and we would plan based on that. We would release content based on the plan, tailored toward a specific group of players. That means, as developers, when we're working on a certain type of content, we can think about this content being only for a certain type of player. Okay, so this can be good, but obviously this is a flaw. There's a lot of issues with this. On one hand, for this type of content, points to the hardcore content, when we're producing it, we don't have to think about casual players. Correct. For the past 12 years, we have carried out our development based on this policy. Okay. But if we continue to follow this policy, and to provide one example from the casual player's perspective, from their perspective, even though the content, the hardcore content is implemented in the game, it's almost the same as being non-existent to them. Okay. On the flip side, okay, here we go. This was, okay. On the flip side, from a hardcore player's perspective, the content, casual content, is also non-existent. Okay, I'm not gonna lie here, man. He's fucking cooking right now. He's cooking. But we say to them, refers to all the sweets, I'm very happy that he used candy. See, I understand this much clearer now that he used candy. All the content, hey, look at how much content you got to play. So the policy we had went well, but I could say that it went too well, because now we created so much new content that the players are telling us, oh, well, this content has nothing to do with me. I don't care. Okay. What I want to say is that, of course, for the top tier of players, we know that content tailored towards them is needed. Okay, that's very good. And we will continue to produce that content. Points at the one of the hardcore suites. And on the other side of the spectrum, for the really casual players, we also understand that the content is also needed, and we will continue to produce that. So we will continue to tailor content for both ends of the spectrum. Okay, but there is what... Okay, now, again, I'm not trying to nitpick, but what about the midcore? Like, when I was joking earlier about the midcore, I was also serious. Okay, what we're trying to do now is change the design so that we have content which can be enjoyed by everyone. Yoshida sorts midcore content and one of the 2 parts of hardcore and casual content, respectively, each of which is intended to appeal both ends of the spectrum. So, from these players' perspectives, pointing at the hardcore content, there would be 5 types of content. And for the other players, there will also be 5 types. And to put it simply, that's it. Thank you. I mean, yeah. He said the same thing in the live letter. I mean, yeah, this is really good, but this is so this is pretty much the same thing what he said before. Yeah, this is very powerful. This is very good. Basically, everything in this is what we need. Like, no, I mean, it is like no joke. This is exactly what the fuck we need, man. Okay, so his version of structure is not exactly what I was thinking of, like his definition of structure, but that's okay because it's still really good. So it's good and bad, right? Because like his version of structure is different in the sense that, you know, like just like some of the really obvious shit, like the 24-man, that shit should be like a raid gear equivalent. The tome cap should be lifted way sooner. The raid should be unlocked way sooner. Like basically on the point 1, the point 3 patches, like those odd number patches, the raid tier should just boom instantly be unlocked. Like all of that shit should be unlocked because at that point the raid tier has been around for 4 months or 3.5, 4 months. It's fucking dead. No one cares about it. No, it like just get people the gear. Just let them have fun. So that is kind of what I was thinking about when structure. But what he's saying is, yeah. So you have okay. So like for instance, man. So like for instance, let's say this. So you know, in his example with Pilgrim Traverse. You're going to have the casual aspect of it where you're just going to, you know, you can level up, you can go through with your buddies, you can do all that shit. Then you're going to have some of the more mid-core stuff, or maybe you try a solo run, or maybe you try to fight the boss on a savage level difficulty, you know, some of that stuff. And then you do like the super hardcore where you fight like you crank the shit out of the difficulty and you do that shit, you know. I mean, some would even argue that the solo version is like hardcore too. I mean, I think it's like maybe a little bit of both, but I'm not really into that type of stuff. So I can't really, to me, I'm not really interested in it. So I don't really know. I would classify it somewhere between mid-core and hardcore. I personally don't really think it's hardcore, but I know a lot of people have said it's hard and I've never done it. So I'm just going to take your word for it. But regardless, the fact that this one piece of content is applicable to so many different types of people, that is good. So let's use another example of something that's in the game. Let's use a 24-man. So what if the 24-man, what if it comes out as, it normally does? So the 24-man comes out as it normally does, which is obviously casual, okay? So now you make it harder, okay? Now how harder are you going to make it? So there's different ways you can do it. Do you come out with a chaotic at the same time you come out with a with the 24-man, or do you just simply make the 24-man harder? Well, I think it's easier and faster to just make it harder than make an entirely new fight. Okay? Now, you could do either, okay? But we have to remember this is Square Enix, okay? It took them 12 years to fucking finally realize that the structure of the game is garbage, okay? So we have to give them... So we have to basically, if it's not like the tiniest little itty-bitty, little bitty baby step, then that's too much for them, okay? Let's say this just take the 24-man and you just make it harder, okay? So now they're releasing 24-man, so casual. Now you make it harder. Now it's mid-core, okay? Now, let's just say that they end it with that they end it with chaotic. I would be fine with that because I thought chaotic was punishing enough, not too punishing. And it was rewarding and it was very fun to do. Chaotic is one of the best piece of content in the entire fucking game. This is literally how it works in WoW. Yeah, Final Fantasy should steal some shit from WoW. This article was very good. His answers were very good. Like the way he explained it was pretty good. The only small complaints I had was, I think that he's a little bit misleading in the sense that how long the formula has worked, because from an outsider's perspective, in my opinion, this would lead that person to believe that the formula has worked longer than it has. Anyway, I think there was one more thing we needed to read here, right? I tried to explain it really simple, but we're trying to do what will require us approaching all the designs and also changes in the workflow. And I think since we're doing something new, it is necessary for us to move forward. And at this prospect, I'm super excited. Okay, good. But this total concept of what we're doing, there's so much behind it that if there was an opportunity to go to some sort of games conference and maybe spend 2 hours to talk about it, that would be great. I mean, that would be awesome. At the end of the day, though, players don't really need to think about it that much. All they need to know is that the development team is working on something, and because of that, the players would be interested and motivated to provide us their feedback. That would be great. Okay, so TLDR, man. This article, it was really good. I'm very excited about Pilgrim's Traverse. I've said this previously. I think that if they stick with this design philosophy to try to release all content available to as many people as possible, I think they're going to be much more successful. This is a lot of stuff that we've asked for in the past, or at least I know I have. But hopefully, in addition to this, because this isn't the only thing they need to change, they also need to change faster patch cycles with more content in them. However, that more content can actually be less quantity and more quality. So what I'm saying is if, like, let's say they release 6 pieces of content and only 2 of them are applicable to casual, hardcore, mid-core, that means that that player is only going to have 2 pieces of content, maybe 3 at most, per patch. On the flip side, instead of 6 pieces of content, let's say they only release 4 pieces of content, okay? All 4 of those pieces of content are applicable to all different types of players. That means that even though we're getting only 4 instead of 6, because those 4 are just better quality, more accessible to everybody, everybody's actually getting 4 pieces of content instead of 6. Does that make sense? I think that if they stick to that design philosophy, that principle, I think they're going to be very successful. Anyway, React over.